lot of the services that families require. And I personally really like the name Family Care Center because it's hard to separate out caring for children from caring for families and paying attention to the needs of parents. And so putting it together as the Family Care Center is a great model. And it's one of the reasons why I wanted to come to Lexington, to come to this center, because it is a model. And I want more communities, not just across Kentucky, but across America, to know about it. I just want to make a few brief comments because I really want to hear from all of you who are gathered. As Joanna said, I have spent much of my adult life working on behalf of children and families. It is a personal passion of mine, and it is something that I feel is at the core of everything else we want to do in society and in the economy. If we don't support families, we don't support making our country or any community as strong as it can and should be. What's special about this center is that, among other things, it does serve as a center for families whose members, mostly parents, are going to college, getting their education in either finishing high school, community college, or even the university, and looking for ways to improve their opportunities for a better future for themselves and their kids. I think it's important to point out that here in Kentucky, 25% of the people in college right now, community and four-year college, already have children. So we've got to understand how best we can help those parents succeed, stay in school, finish school, get their education. And that's why having more support for parents makes a lot of sense to me. Secondly, the home visitation program that is run out of here really fits into my belief that we need to do more to help parents succeed in their homes, to be their child's first teachers, to understand what they can do to get their child off to the best possible start, including and especially those first 5 years of life. So having home visiting programs, I brought one to Arkansas when my husband was governor there, called the Home Instruction Program for Preschool Youngsters, and it's had a really positive effect on thousands of families by now. And I worked when I was in the United States Senate to make sure we had a national program to support home visiting, and my ideas were picked up and put into the Affordable Care Act. So we are making progress, but we have more to do to try to reach families as early as possible. And then the cost of child care is so high that the fact you've got a child care program here, which is subsidized, which helps to provide quality child care to families, is absolutely critical. I was at a discussion yesterday, and then I also visited a child care program afterwards in Northern Virginia, and high-quality child care is as expensive in many states as paying tuition to go to college. So it just doesn't make sense. I mean, it's the most important job that any of us can do, and we're making it really expensive and very difficult. So we need to do more to help provide quality child care like what we're seeing here. And then finally, so much of this comes down to giving parents, particularly young parents, more economic opportunities to be able to have better jobs with rising incomes, to be able to do more for themselves and their kids, to get their families on a stronger foundation for the future. And you're doing all of that here, and you care about all of that, and it's exactly what I want to see more of, is how all of that fits together, as opposed to child care's over here, job training's over here, economic opportunities over here, education's over here. No, let's understand they all reinforce each other. So with that, Joanna, I'd love to hear from some of the people that are living this and have their own ideas about what works and what more we can do to make the most important job any of us will ever do, namely raising children, a little less stressful in today's world. I think that's probably the best way of describing it.
I think it would be nice to hear from someone who has experienced child care and maybe with the child care assistance too, that's helped them become more independent or work towards independence. Would anybody like to comment on that? Hillary?
I know that I am. I'm a mother of three daughters. One's in kindergarten, two is in daycare here. And this place has just been so wonderful for me because to be able to, I do have a bachelor's degree, but to be able to raise my children, to bring the income into the home that's necessary, I couldn't do it without this place because how could I raise 3 children without neglecting them and also work? So when I bring them here, I know they're loved and they're cared for, but to be honest, my journey to find this place is such a struggle. And as a mother, I felt like I was failing because actually right before I brought them here, I was almost in tears because I was almost going to send my youngest to a daycare that they had a curriculum that they just chose. It wasn't a preschool, and the people that they hired weren't necessarily qualified. So it was not your best child care that you could find. So when I found this place, it was just like heaven's open. They take care of the kids. They love them. I can work and I can commit myself to improving my life as a mother, improving the income in my family so I can provide my children the life they deserve, with also being a mother because they are someone I love. And my oldest is in kindergarten, and she was ready for that because I sent her to preschool here. She was ready to take that next step in her life. So I now feel like I am a successful mother in my situation because of family care center.
I think that's a really important point because when you are so stressed out and when you are feeling like you're not doing everything you need to do to take care of your kids, that also makes it difficult to do the work outside the home because you're worried and you're feeling guilty and you're just not able to focus. I mean, I know that from personal experience. If you don't feel like you have the best situations set up for your children, how do you concentrate on the job you're supposed to be doing? And I think that's something more employers need to understand. That this is no longer in today's workforce where so many mothers are in the workforce along with dads. This is not some luxury that is available to a few. This has to be available to everybody. And your story really illustrates that. How did you find this place eventually?
Well, I actually was on a search for daycare, looking high, looking low, and a fellow employee of mine recommended this place. She's a teacher. And so she said, go to this place, it's wonderful. She sung the place. I came in, I met Karen. But as soon as she took me into this room, I fell in love. I met the teachers. They had 20, 30 plus years of experience. You can just look around and they tour you through the building, from the cafeteria to watching the kids interact to watching the teachers. But that's how I found out, was just networking, through town. And once we sat down and she explained the process, and it is affordable child care. So that too, just to be honest and be realistic, was definitely
right.
Because sometimes it's a catch-22. I only make this much, I can't afford daycare, so I've turned down jobs in the past because either the schedule didn't work or financially didn't make sense, so.
Well, maybe you could tell me a little bit, Karen, about how it works. Is it a sliding scale? How are fees determined so that somebody like Hillary can afford it and you're able to provide the high quality you provide?
A lot of our parents utilize the child care assistance program in Kentucky, and that is through the state, and it is based on their income. Like for the high school students, they do not pay a copay because they fall into the teen parent category. But our working parents, I would say the majority of our working parents will pay a copay, and that's based on their income. So we have those that may be paying $30 a week, some may be paying $50 a week toward the cost of the child care, and then the state will pick up the rest.
So you are subsidized by the state of Kentucky. Is there any other revenue that comes in to support your program?
We have some of the parents pay full pay. We have foster care. We have children that are in the foster care system, and again, that's through the state.
And what would full pay be? How much would it cost?
For an infant up to 2 years of, up to 3 years of age, it's $150 a week. And once they reach their 3rd birthday, it's $130 a week.
Okay. That still is affordable compared to what you see.
Much lower than
much lower.
most centers are able
Yeah.
to do here.
Well, I would love to hear from our panelists too. Perhaps you could start and talk about some of the issues that you're facing.
I have older children now, so it's not as hard as it was when they were younger. But when we found ourselves in the worst situation, I was 25 and I didn't have a job, and I had 2 kids and no place to live and no education. So moving my children into government subsidized housing long enough to where we could get on our feet. So we did that. We moved into government subsidized housing, my 2 older ones. I went to CTE, which is a program that's ran by BCTC now. Got a set of job skills that I didn't have before, as well as a GED. And then when I graduated from high school, they did a high school, like a graduation for the GED. My kids were sitting on the front row.
That must have been so proud.
And then ever since then we've been working. And now I have one that's a junior in college and one that's graduating high school this year, and then I have 2 babies still at home. I'm also lucky enough to be a union member, so some of the issues that face other parents, like equal work for equal pay, don't really affect me because somebody else is bargaining that so that I don't have to worry about that, as well as our healthcare system.
Right. That makes a really big
It's
difference.
huge.
And you know, there are still so many problems with people being paid less than they deserve, not getting overtime, not getting fair pay, women not getting equal pay. And it's one of the reasons why unionized workers are able to feel, you know, better taken care of, because you know what you're supposed to get. You know the compensation you're supposed to get, you know the benefits you're supposed to get, and there's an equality of it that, you know, somebody doing your job in another place but with the same union gets the same
Correct.
benefits and compensation, right?
Yeah.
And it's one of the reasons why with the decline of unionization, you've seen the decline of the middle class. It goes hand in hand. And even people who aren't in unions don't understand how if you drive down overall bargained compensation, you drive it down for everybody who are not even in unions. So it has a ripple effect.
Right.
Right? So how old are your 2 youngest?
They are 9 and 12.
Okay. Okay.
I have 2 boys and 2 girls.
You're here to tell us about that.
Right, I lived through it. It's
You lived
fine.
through
I
it,
lived through
right?
Yeah.
But good for you. Good for you to really put yourself into a position where you could get the education, get the skills, get the job, and luckily a union job that supports you like that.
Yeah, and we even ran for a city council position here in Fayette County.
You did?
Yes, the first person my daughter ever got to vote for was me.
That is so great. Well, congratulations. That's really great. How about you?
I was blessed, very blessed, that when struggles came along being a single parent, I was able to move back in with my parents. I'm one of those boomerang kids. But working as a single mom and trying to balance the workplace and sick kids and snow days and the summer holidays, those are the things that we struggle with even now. She's in elementary school still, and you're like, well, what camp are we going to this week? And what about next week? And does that camp, most of them close at 4, you don't get off till 5, and you can't get there till 6 because of traffic. And so just trying to get things that are
Well, what you're saying, though, I mean, really illustrates how so many of our rules for families are still mired in the past that just doesn't exist anymore.
No.
And you've mentioned things that seem, you know, kind of minor, but when you add it all up, it's a big burden. I mean, snow days, summer vacations, things that you can't stop and take care of your child because you're still working all year round.
Yeah.
So how have you managed that?
Through networking also, just really close friends, some church friends, coworkers who are working part-time. I got lucky with my daughter, and when she was an infant, she went to the same in-home sitter that I went to as an infant. So I got really lucky in that ways. And because we've had that long relationship with some snow days, we've been able to call her back up and you know, do that. But otherwise, you're scrambling the morning of to see who has time to take off, who doesn't have time to take off. You just call everybody in the family to see who can and who can't.
Yeah. No, I remember those days. You know, you're you got to be at work and your baby wakes up sick and the babysitter's sick because they both got sick together and you have nowhere to turn and you're just calling everybody you know to say, please, can you come over and stay for a few hours until I can get back?
Yes, we've done that. We've played drop-off with like 3 different people because they
Yeah.
had 2 hours here, 2 hours there, 3 hours there to make it through the whole day. Yeah.
But we do need more backup for working parents because lots of times it's difficult to piece that together. And you mentioned the church, you mentioned obviously your family, longtime family, friends and supporters. But we got to figure out how that's available for people who don't have that existing network and what can we do to provide more support because I just don't think these stories are told enough so that people really hear what it's like trying to piece all of those puzzle pieces together to get through the day, the week, the year, and do right by your family, right by your job. And so I'm looking for good ideas that we can try to model from so that we get more of a supporting network for more families. And I think churches, houses of worship, they're open all the time. Schools are open. You know, I'd like to see every child go to pre-kindergarten at the age of 4, and that would give us the continuity, and you'd get the child going and getting exposed to teaching starting at age 4. Universal pre-K is what I'm hoping to get to, and then that would, give us more time to focus on the first 3 years of life, home visiting, other kinds of child care programs that would, relieve some of the burden off of parents. So you have one daughter.
Yes.
How old is she now?
She'll be 9 on Monday.
9 on Monday.
Yep.
Well,
Very
happy
close.
birthday early.
Yeah.
Jessica, how about you? What's your story?
Well, I'm a non-traditional student. I go to UK, and my degree, when I graduate in 2 semesters, will be in hospitality management and tourism. I have a 6-year-old son, and I balance that and working part-time, also on campus, and him, and taking 5 classes, sometimes a semester. It's very difficult, and just like the other panelists, if I did not have family, if I did not have my family to support me and friends to support me, it would be very difficult. Mm-hmm. It can be done, but with trickery. Right. You have to be crafty and creative because you can't always depend on a certain person all the time. So at some point when I first, when I went to school, when I went back to school, I had 10 years off. After I graduated high school, I went to college for a year and a half. I felt like that it wasn't the time for me to do that. So I entered the workforce, and from there I had a job that I worked with Verizon, a call center, for 7 years until they closed in 2010. And when they closed their doors and outsourced in 2010, that's when I decided I needed to go back to school. Mm-hmm. To further my education, because I guess before then I felt like that job was going to be the job that I retired mm-hmm. from. Mm-hmm. And it was devastating to find that they were closing their doors, and I had just had my son in 2010, February, and they closed in March of 2010. So from there, I started school. I went back to school, started at BCTC in the fall, and progressed from there.
And so how did you work out care for your son? Was it all family-based? Your family did it?
No. At the beginning, when I first went back to school, it was all family-based because I could not afford childcare. So his dad kept him a lot. I had cousins that would keep him. I have a cousin that is a stay-at-home mom, and because she's able to do that. And she would watch him as well sometimes when I have to work, and because I was working and going to school then too. Mm-hmm. So it was difficult, but it seemed like the more that I stayed with it, the more doors opened up for me, the more people were willing to help. So
That's a very interesting comment. Have others of you felt that way, that, you know, sticking with something as difficult as it might be can lead to other opportunities, or, as you pointed out, Hillary, finding a place that you didn't even know existed? I think that's a very interesting perspective. I mean, and how do we create more options? And this is like a one-stop shopping for family care here, but how do we create more opportunities for you to know what's out there and then to seek them out? So I'd love to turn now to some others who are here. Who else would like to raise any issue we've already talked about, or a new issue? Yes.
Well, you just mentioned a question about how do we make sure that people do know about these opportunities that they can take advantage of to help them out on their journey to a better life. And I think we've experienced firsthand probably one of the best ways. So Justin and I are involved with the HANDS program, which is the home visitation service similar to the one that you brought to your state. And so I guess it all began around 2 years ago. So we were, of course, surprised by our son. We hadn't planned on it. I was in the middle of my undergraduate education. And so basically we thought, what do we do now? So do we just Google everything, or and obviously there is no instruction manual, but my good friend Brittany, who's sitting over there, she was involved in the HANDS program herself, and she was kind enough to refer us. And so that's how we got involved. I'd never heard of it before, had no clue what it was, and frankly, I was a little skeptical about how long I would even be involved. But from the very first meeting that I had when I was still pregnant, I could tell that it was going to be a wealth of information. And even up to today, when we're still having home visits, we are still learning incredible things, not only about how to be good parents, but about all of these resources that are right here in Lexington that we would have had no way of knowing about otherwise. Such as the clinic here in the Family Care Center. We actually lived right down the road on Red Mile when we first started the program. So it was just a hop, skip, and a jump to bring him to the pediatrician if we needed to. And he does not attend here for daycare, but we learned about the Salvation Army Early Learning Center through our HANDS worker. And again, they aren't able to advertise widely, so we never would have known about that either. And it's extremely affordable. It's $130 a week, which
Right.
is,
Very affordable, absolutely. And then the WIC program, Women, Infants, and Children
Right.
program.
they walked us through, applying for that program. They connected us to all kinds of people who had expertise, and basically held our hand all the way through it. So.
And how did you experience it as a dad?
Well, as Des has said, we were very surprised, and I was in the middle of a PhD program in philosophy, and I'd already received my master's, and I was kind of freaking out. I ended up, I'm taking a break from that right now and actually teaching as an adjunct professor over to EKU and working a second job now over the summer. But it was just, at the time, I had no idea what to expect. I was just completely on the verge of freaking out. But one of the things about the HANDS program is that, it just sort of grounded things for us. And I was able to learn so much through them, and was just amazed at how so many things seem very obvious or intuitive, but they sort of walk you through how to deal with a child as they reach certain milestones, like particularly learning about tantruming and e-parenting or empathy parenting. That's been something that's, I think, really helpful. And you hear all these things from I don't know, your relatives or your grandma or whatever. You hear all of these different ways to deal with children, but they actually can tell you, well, the science and like actual early childhood education models to say, look, this is exactly what to expect and how to deal with it. And it's kind of strange that I'm telling my mother, like, the appropriate way. No, this is what you should do when your 18-month-old's having a tantrum. But all this has happened because of the HANDS program. It's just been it's helped to ground us, and just whereas, like, you know, we would be very nervous and, you know, sort of freaking out, feeling just sort of adrift, because here in Lexington, my family's from West Virginia, that's where they live, that's where I'm originally from. Dez's family was in Louisville, but now live in Portland, Oregon, so we're really here on our own.
Right.
And Hands has really been something of an anchor for us to really, you know, help us out.
You know, there's so much evidence about the importance of these home visiting programs. It is one of the best investments we could make, because you're right, it provides that grounding, it provides that information, that support, somebody to call with a question, because most families are not nearby anymore. We've had some great examples of people who are relying on their families, but for most people, that's no longer as much of an option as it used to be. So to have a home visiting program really makes all the difference. And it, you know, for people like yourselves who are really receptive and wanting to learn, it really helps. But for some families that are, you know, are struggling, they have all kinds of challenges. This can literally be a lifesaver, a lifeline to help somebody get the health care that the parent needs, not just what the child needs, and to be an early warning signal about things that might be causing stress in the family that you can kind of intervene and help to deal with. So it goes all the way from the grounding, good information, good support systems, to really a kind of early warning signal, doesn't it, about how this can make a difference. So I'm really impressed that you're saying that, and I'm glad it started when you were pregnant, because you got a chance to really get some good advice before the baby arrived, which is such an overwhelming experience anyway. So you had a bit more preparation than you might have had otherwise. And Brittany, could you talk a little bit more about how that works? Yeah. Are you doing the home visiting program too?
So my daughter is actually graduated today. So after the 2 years of age, you graduate from Hands. So it's really from prenatal to 2. And so we were also referred to it by someone else. So I don't remember who referred me, but it was, you know, it's kind of a friend of my in-laws type of thing. And yeah, so then I got pregnant, and you know, then Des got pregnant, and I was like, hey, check out Hands.
Yeah. It really works. I'm very, very happy to hear that. Yeah.
Just to add, yeah, the only way that I think that you can join the Hands program is if you do have a reference, if you're referred to someone by someone specifically, because I don't think that, you know, that there's enough support that it's wide enough to be able to take, you know, anyone that,
right,
you know, would choose or possibly even need the program. And, you know, we had no idea that this program even existed. We, you know, never even heard about it until, of course, Brittany let us know about that. So,
how many families are being served by the Hands program now?
Since the program began, probably 90,000 families across the state. We're in our 16th year. And our local program runs around 170 a year at the Family Care Center. And right now, probably 90 families are doing it. And our issues with families vary, as you may know. Des and Justin may just want to take it up a notch and learn the parenting practices, and other families are facing homelessness, not able to get prenatal care. So our workers have to be pretty diverse, you know, in meeting the needs of these families. And I really think it's an economic issue. I mean, you know, this child is going to have so much better going for it.
Yeah.
Little Fritz is his name. A lot of other children. And I think we as a community need to make the investment now. And the program, it does sort of end at 2. And we sort of hold our breath what's going to happen from 2 to 4. And if we did have pre-K services for all, you know, we would feel our work could still continue. And Hands does make an allowance to go to age 3. It's really rare that a family would need it. And it's limited numbers. And with the Affordable Care Act, we were able to, as a state, provide it to what we call multi-gravida families, which is not just first-time parents.
Right.
When it was started in 2000, the state had to limit it, and we thought first-time parents needed the most information. And with the Affordable Care Act, we were able to expand it to second, third-time moms,
right,
which we see quite an interest in.
interesting what you say, because I think stresses in raising children happen for different people at different times. You know, some people are more comfortable with an infant than when you get to a toddler and you've got a child who's into everything and saying no and all the things that toddlers do, then that puts stresses that may not have been there before. So having some kind of continuing contact or phone number, anything to call to get that extra help and that reassurance. I've seen that be important as you go through different stages of parenting your children. How about you?
Secretary Clinton, I'm here in support. I serve as Commissioner of Social Services and work closely with Joanna and her great staff. And just listening to the family stories reassures us and city leadership of the good work that goes on here. I think Joanna would join me in saying that it's all about partnerships. You know, we do very good work and proud of the work we do here, but it's definitely a community effort working with agencies such as Community Action, with our Head Start effort, working with the support of our council, et cetera. Our public school system is very much interested in birth to 5 initiatives, and we look to work with them. So this is just very encouraging, and we're very proud of the work that Joanna and her team does here.
That must make you feel good.
May I jump in and put my boss on the spot? I'd like for you to share a little bit of your personal, maybe a personal connection that you have to this.
Yeah, I think Joanna, as I've come out with the families here and good staff here, me and my siblings were participating in the Head Start program. I'm a native of Florida who came to Kentucky to play football in the UK. But I'm definitely certain now that it was those experiences, those opportunities that my family had, similar to those that the families here are having, will lead to the success for their children and their families. So I do relate proudly to the work that goes on here for the families.
Well, I'm a very strong Head Start supporter, and early Head Start, which we need more of, so that we can get to children even earlier. And I've met a lot of star graduates of Head Start, so I will add you to my list of people who are proud to have come out of that program as a young child and gone on to give back the way you are now. It's very, very inspiring, so thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, please.
I think for us, we have kind of slightly a different spin, but I can piggyback on Hillary. We got pregnant, and then when our youngest was about 2 months, I found out I was pregnant again. So talk about freaking out. It was a complete surprise. But at the time, I had just graduated UK in the graduate program for school psychology. And finding a job in such a specific area was very difficult. So I wasn't able to do that. And so to even think about 2 children in childcare on one income was just, there was no way. So I did about 2.5 years as a stay-at-home mom, and then I pursued working as an independent behavior specialist. So I provide services to individuals with developmental disabilities, typically on the waiver form. But so we kind of went through a very I don't know, like...
It was rough.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a rough patch. But finding a quality child care center was so difficult for us. And just like Hillary, I was like in tears. And my husband drove, found Family Care Center. And because we looked at all the state registries, and some of the things we were not very pleased with all the other centers. We did pop-up visits because we didn't believe in just making an appointment for centers. I want to see them in their natural environment. With the children. And the places that we went were not very conducive for us. It just wasn't a good fit. And so when we came here, it was very welcoming, and just the fact that there are teachers here that have bachelor's degrees, have been here for 20 plus years. I mean, that speaks volumes, because that's one of the questions that I would ask a lot of the care centers. And so some, were very young, and just the quality was not as great. And so it's been wonderful. I always tell Karen that I'll be the spokesperson for Family Care Center all day long. We have loved it, and we've seen, such wonderful things, and it's very affordable. Even both of us being working parents, Childcare is still very expensive. I mean, we still pay like almost $15,000 a year for childcare, and it's still a stretch. But this is still very affordable when you're looking at all the other possibilities that were out there. But this is, I will say, the best daycare here. So.
Do you want to add something to your search since you found a family care center?
Yeah, I mean, like she said, it was literally going through the state registry, and then also, as far as what the state has with the STARS program, there were certain standards that they were looking for. That's kind of what we found, and I think it's the only place close by with 4 stars. And it's like, all right, well, we at least have to go check it out. And like she said, it was welcoming. The credentials that the instructors here have was appealing. And, you know, as we're continuing to think about, you know, how we're going to continue to have our 2 little girls educated, you know, like she said, it is a struggle to kind of provide that. But, you know, we find ways in budgeting and things of that nature and kind of know what our priorities are. But, you know, on top of student loan debt, on top of other things that we're kind of navigating, because with both of us navigating higher ed, I currently work in higher ed and I see my students, but I also see myself and be able to relate with them. I think all of those variables come into play as well. So.
Yeah, it's a really important point because what you mentioned, your education, caring for your daughters, these are investments, and we're not thinking about them the right way. We're not thinking about them as investments that will give you and your family more opportunities, that will better prepare your daughters. And we need to get more help to families like all of these who are struggling to, you know, you pay rent, you pay food, you pay utilities, you pay car payments, you pay all of the usual stuff. And then, you know, those are necessities, and then you want to get ahead, you want a better life for your kids, and everything is so expensive. So higher education is so expensive. That's why, you know, I'm proposing a plan to lower student debt and get it paid off faster so that you don't have to have that burden on your shoulders. I think for child care, I don't think any family should have to pay more than